Yes.
Okay.
So what are we expecting? 8 people altogether, or how many people showed up last week?
I thought it might have been 11.
11 total. And last week, 11 people showed up, or was it less?
I think we had everybody.
Nitai Prasad Prabhu, Hare Krishna. Nice to see you.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandot Pranams, all glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna.
We have Gopal Acharya Prabhu, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranam, Jai Shri Prabhupada.
Prabhupada. So we're going to wait for everyone to tune in. Let's see, it's now 6:32 on my side. So we're a couple of minutes into
¿Hubo
this.
cambio de horario o algo así o qué? Horario de verano, ¿qué será?
So this is our process for achieving success, is to get together in the association of devotees and hear some Krishna Katha, speak some Krishna Katha. Because normally we associate in this world and people get together and they don't speak something which nourishes the soul. Other stuff
¿Ya ves?
about.
¿Ya ves lo que está diciendo?
Someone needs to mute
¿Ya ves lo que
themselves.
está diciendo?
I'm not sure who.
Entonces vete de aquí.
¿Qué dijo?
Que necesitamos asociarnos con devotos para nutrir.
Okay, I think I've succeeded. Okay. So typically people get together and they speak about some topic which reinforces illusion, isn't it? They get together and they talk about schemes of how to increase sense gratification, schemes that they talk about politics. They become immersed in the temporary things of this world, totally forgetting the soul, totally forgetting the soul's purpose in the human form of life. It's all just about self-realization. That's it. All the other stuff that we do is just stuff we have to do, depending on who we are, what our station in life is. But the real, at the core of the purpose of human life is self-realization. And what's the most important engagement activity for achieving self-realization? Would anyone like to offer a suggestion based on your readings, based on your understanding? What is essential for progressing on the path? Anyone can offer something?
Tara Prabhu could be to accept the spiritual master.
Okay. And from the spiritual master, what will you be doing in relationship to the spiritual master?
Well, first of all, to follow his instructions.
Hearing from the spiritual master, isn't it? You hear from the spiritual master.
That's right.
Right? The spiritual master gives some knowledge, some understanding. Here's what life is about. Here's who you are. Here's what this world is. Here's the path to happiness. Here's what leads to bondage. We hear, and by hearing, we come to understand which activities will benefit us, which activities will bind us. So this gathering with devotees, spending some quality time and hearing from the Shastra, from the Acharya, this is invaluable. It's not only a good utilization of time, it's a fantastic utilization of time. Because our intelligence becomes clear. Our understanding of our purpose becomes clear. And also the process of hearing is direct food for the soul. Because what is that hearing? That hearing is non-different from Krishna. The sound vibration, the spiritual sound vibration is Krishna himself. So we're reconnecting with Krishna. So that's why it's enlivening. Okay. I will ask our Madhuha Prabhu to please chant an invocation prayer, whatever you feel inspired to chant as an invocation prayer before our meeting starts. But you're muted, so you have to unmute so that we can hear the invocation prayer.
Okay, now, I guess Srila Prabhupada's Pranam mantra.
Yeah, as
Is
you
that
feel
okay?
inspired, that's great.
Okay. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyabari Paskyatyade Deshatarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Jai Shri Prabhupada.
Thank you very much. Okay, I'm going to share the screen. We are going to be covering mantras 4 and 5 from the Isopanisad. So everyone can now see the mantras
Yes.
there, the mantra on the screen.
Yes.
This is mantra 4. And so I will chant the mantra one time. And then if someone would like to chant the mantra after that, just give an indication. And you can also chant the mantra. Om Anejadekam Manaso Javiyo Nainadeva Apnuvan Purvam Arshat Tadavaton Yan Atyeti Tishtat Tasmin Apomatarishvadadati. Anyone else would like to chant? Blake, would you like to chant that mantra?
Yes. Ane jare kal manaso jayi javiyo nanina deva apunavan purvam marsat tadavatonyan atyati tistat tasmin apo matar ishvara dadati. Sorry about that. I missed the rhythm.
Very good. Anyone else? Maybe two more devotees would like to chant the mantra. Anyone next? Please, go ahead.
Andejada kamana soji javiyo naina deva apnuvan purva marshat tadhavato nyan atyati tishtat tasmin apo matarishvadadhati.
One more devotee.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. अनेजद एकम मनोसो जावीयो नाना देवा अपनुवान पूर्वम आरासत तद्धावतो नायन अत्येति तिष्ठत तस्मिन् अपो मत्र शिवा ददाति.
Very good. Thank you. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. Although fixed in his abode, the personality of Godhead is swifter than the mind and can overcome all others running. The powerful demigods cannot approach him. Although in one place he controls those who supply the air and rain, he surpasses all in excellence. So you can just imagine reading this verse right here, and not having the commentary, not having the purport. You could reach so many conclusions, and the conclusions you reached wouldn't necessarily be proper conclusions. You could easily reach an improper conclusion. Therefore, the acharyas, they've given purports. They've explained what these somewhat esoteric texts are from the Upanishads. And by hearing from the acharyas, everything becomes crystal clear. And the beauty of Srila Prabhupada's presentation is that he wants people to understand. You know, sometimes there's teachers or so-called swamis or gurus, and they're asked questions, and they speak in a way which is confusing, or it's just not clear. It's full of riddles. They're trying to impress the audience. It's ambiguous, but Prabhupada's not like that. When Prabhupada speaks, you know exactly what he's saying, because his purpose is very clear. He wants people to understand. He wants people to be benefited. So Prabhupada's translation, purport. Through mental speculation, even the greatest philosopher cannot know the Supreme Lord, who is the absolute personality of Godhead. He can be known only by his devotees through his mercy. In the Brahma Samhita, it is stated that even if a non-devotee philosopher travels through space at the speed of the wind or the mind for hundreds of millions of years, he will still find that the absolute truth is far, far away from him. The Brahma Samhita 537 further describes that the absolute personality of Godhead has his transcendental abode, known as Goloka, where he remains and engages in his pastimes. Yet, by his inconceivable potencies, he can simultaneously reach every part of his creative energy. So here, we're having a statement, a claim, that even the greatest philosophers, people with big brains, people with great capacity, people that are intelligent on so many levels, if they're not devotees, they can't understand the absolute truth. They'll never reach the proper conclusion. And only those who are devotees can understand properly the absolute truth, the Supreme Lord. So someone might hear that and think that sounds like a dogmatic claim. That doesn't sound reasonable, right? So what would be your argument as to why this is a reasonable conclusion?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yes, Nitai Prasad.
So my understanding would be that it's like when you go to school, you need a teacher for a particular subject. So you are at the mercy of the teacher. So he gives you mercy and teaches you accordingly because he's coming in a disciplic succession. So if you are a philosopher, a speculator, you are not a devotee because you haven't surrendered, and plus you haven't got a spiritual master who has guided you or taught you accordingly.
Right. So it's essential that the teacher that you're taking guidance from is connected to the disciplic succession. And what does that mean specifically? Someone can give in a very succinct form, in a very short, abbreviated form. What does that mean? That a teacher is connected to the disciplic succession. If someone asked you that question, what does that mean?
it has to be also authorized by the scriptures, whether that particular school is authentic. It's like when we go over to take our children to schools, we usually go and see the school, whether we see whether it's authentic, whether it's authentic in terms by the government, it's been authorized, and whether those teachers teaching there are authorized.
And how do we determine who's authorized and who's not authorized in terms of a spiritual teacher? How do we know this person is authorized, this person is not authorized or half authorized? How would you determine that?
I guess you have to see also the how the teacher's behavior, how he's also following the example,
Okay.
and by inquiring, by asking questions.
Certainly the teacher should have a pure lifestyle, but in
Yes.
terms of the dissemination of knowledge, he must be repeating what's there in the scriptures.
In
He
the
must not
scriptures.
be twisting some other meaning out of the scriptures. This is the qualification of a genuine teacher. The genuine teacher, Prabhupada said it thousands of times, he simply repeats Krishna's words. Krishna says, surrender to me. The teacher doesn't say, it's not to Krishna that you have to surrender, but to the impersonal within Krishna. The teacher simply repeats Krishna's words. This is the qualification of the guru. That's the disciplic succession. God is the original teacher, and God imparts knowledge, and all the subsequent teachers, they simply repeat that knowledge. So why does the Supreme Lord only reveal himself? Here's a sincere person, a philosopher, let's say, who's not just a philosopher, but is also a disciplined person who's engaged in a spiritual practice, controlling the mind, controlling the senses, studying different books of knowledge, studying Vedanta Sutra, studying the Upanishads, right? So Krishna still, here the claim is being made that person still won't reach the right conclusion because they're not devotees. So why is this claim being made that Krishna only reveals himself, the Supreme Lord only reveals himself to those who are devotees? What's an argument for that?
He lacks devotion.
He likes
Actually,
devotion.
he
Okay.
lacks yeah, because the knowledge is only revealed to those persons who have, devotion to the Lord, or they have a connection through any of the 5 ways of connecting to Krishna, either through neutrality, through to be a devotee, to like being a parent, or any of the 5 rasas. So you have to have a relationship with God through devotion. That's what it is. At least that's what I understand.
And why is it that devotion inspires God, compels God to reveal himself? This other person is performing heavy austerities, trying to figure out the truth. But why is it that devotion specifically inspires God to reveal himself?
Because he doesn't have an ulterior motive. Just like Jiva Goswami states, what is that verse, which I forgot already just now? Well, basically, yes, that a devotee doesn't have that ulterior motive. So it's not a business transaction with Krishna, but it's actually a service out of love.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the attitude of a devotee. And that devotional attitude, it's natural psychology, just like there's 6 or 8 of us here in this meeting. And if we think about how we interact with others, right? Who are the people that we kind of keep at a distance? And who are the people that we open our hearts to? Who do we let into our inner circle? Who do we reveal our mind to? And who do we keep at a distance? Think about that for a second. So who are those people? Who do we keep at a distance?
I guess from a practical point of view is those who do not have our same line of thought.
They might not like us. They might be jealous of us. They might
Mhm.
not have they might not be well wishers of us, right? We keep them at a distance, especially if we have the power to do that. Right? If I have the power to do it, sometimes I don't have the power to do that. I have to go to work and my boss, I don't like him, he doesn't like me, but I have no choice. I have to go and interact with him every day. But if I'm an important person, if I'm a prime minister, then some guy comes knocking on the door and I say to my secretary, who's that? Oh, that's that guy who writes bad articles about you, who's jealous of you, who seems to be scheming against you. I tell the secretary, keep him outside. Tell him I'm not here. I'll never open the door for him. It's natural psychology. Someone else knocks on the door, who can be any person, a simple person, a humble person, and they have devotion for me. They have affection for me. They have good feelings towards me. I tell my secretary, let that person in the door. Isn't it? It's natural psychology. So Krishna has that same natural psychology. Those who are envious of him, those who don't have a well-wishing attitude towards Krishna, well, he keeps them outside. He doesn't reveal himself to them. And those who love him, naturally, he opens the door. He says, here I am. I'm happy to interact with you. And so that's why none of these other qualifications are so important. The greatest philosopher, the greatest non-devotee philosopher, can philosophize for hundreds of millions of years, and Krishna will still not reveal the ultimate truth to that person. That person might get some understanding of life, but that person will never reach the full understanding of life, that God is ultimately the supreme person. What do you think? Does that make sense? It makes sense. It's not dogma. That's the point. Because especially nowadays in modern life, people are highly allergic to religious dogma, right? If you go and talk to a Christian or a Muslim or a Hindu or a Jew and you ask him a question and he tells you, well, my answer is that in my scripture it says this. And you say, okay, your scripture says that. Now, can you please explain to me why that's reasonable? He says, well, my scripture says it. That's it. You either accept it or, you're wrong. Intelligent people don't accept that. So in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Bhaktyamam abhijanati yavanyas chasmi tatvataha. He says, I can only be understood by devotion. And someone might say, oh, again, a dogmatic claim that only by devotion, no other method you can understand God by no other method, but it's not a dogmatic claim. It's a claim which is a very reasonable claim. And this is why. Krishna opens his heart, reveals himself to people who have affection for him. Same psychology that we have. All right, let's read on. Would someone else like to read? How about Atavi Krishna Prabhu? Would you like to read? Where are we here?
Yes, Prabhu.
Yes. The Brahma Samhita 537. You can read from there, please.
Thank you. The Brahma Samhita 537 further describes that the absolute personality of Godhead has his transcendental abode, known as Goloka, where he remains and engages in his pastimes. Yet, by his inconceivable potencies, he can simultaneously reach every part of his creative energy. In the Vishnu Purana, his potencies are compared to the heat and light that emanate from a fire. Although situated in one place, a fire can distribute its light and heat from some distance. Similarly, the absolute personality of Godhead, although fixed in his transcendental abode, can diffuse his different energies everywhere.
Let's contemplate that for a second. What is Krishna's capacity? How amazing Krishna is that he's existing in his own abode, Goloka Vrindavan, and how many devotees is he interacting with in Goloka Vrindavan? Anyone can say? What's the number?
Unlimited.
literally unlimited. There is no limit to the number of devotees that Krishna is interacting with in Goloka Vrindavan. And his reciprocation with every single living entity, with every single soul in Goloka Vrindavan is perfect. No soul feels like, oh, Krishna passed by and I feel neglected. I feel that he didn't give me attention. Every soul feels that Krishna perfectly reciprocates with them because Krishna does. Krishna perfectly reciprocates with the unlimited souls in Goloka Vrindavan. And then in Vaikuntha, the same thing. And the number of Vaikuntha planets is innumerable as well. Ayodhya Dham, the spiritual world, Lord Ramachandra, Krishna, associating with, interacting with innumerable souls perfectly, reciprocating with them. And then there's beyond the spiritual world, there's the mature, not beyond, but there's also the material world where there's, all this stuff that's going on, all this nonsense which is going on. And Krishna is conducting the affairs of the material world, and he's doing it through his energies. So imagine the capacity of Krishna, the nature of Krishna, that he's conducting all the affairs of the material world effortlessly through his energies. Nothing is being missed. There's no glitch in the mechanics of the material world. Everything is being conducted perfectly by his energies and through his agents. And then there's some people who are so crazy, the impersonalist philosophers, right? This is what they say. Because the conclusion of the non-devotee impersonal philosophers, what is their conclusion finally? The Mayavadis, what do they say finally?
That this material world is an illusion.
That's one thing they say. And what do they say about us, living entities? What's their conclusion about us?
That we are gods.
Yeah. Also, we're God. We've just somehow we've forgotten, right? This is their conclusion. Not only aham brahmasmi, I'm spirit, but I'm also Brahman, part of the ultimate reality, right? So I'm God, but I've forgotten. So that's not God. This is God, what we were just talking about. Effortlessly conducting all the affairs of the spiritual world, effortlessly conducting all the affairs of the material world. Innumerable living entities in the material world. And Krishna knows exactly what type of karma that living entity has and what type of reaction that living entity should experience. And it's all happening effortlessly. Krishna never misses a note on his flute because he's trying to conduct the affairs of the material world. And so these mad philosophers are saying, actually, we're all God. And people are sitting in the audience listening to some so-called Swami tell them that, yes, we're all God and we've just forgotten. And people are so bewildered, so confused that they're thinking, yes, I'm God, but I've forgotten. So Srila Prabhupada, he's dispersed all the clouds of these silly ideas, and he's helped us to understand our real position, that we're tiny souls, and that the process of achieving enlightenment is not by dint of our own effort. Obviously, our effort is involved, but it's not by dint of our own intelligence, our own capacity. The living entities in this world, we're afflicted with 4 defects. Does anyone remember what the 4 defects of the souls in this world are?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yes, please.
Imperfect senses.
Imperfect senses. You want
Illusion.
to elaborate a little bit on that, imperfect senses?
Yeah, so an example can be like if we are looking at the sun, we cannot actually calculate the dimensions, the size of the sun just by looking at it, for example. And sometimes hearing, we may hear something, but we haven't heard properly. So our senses are not perfect.
Yeah.
So, and yeah,
The
then the other
senses,
one is
the senses
yeah.
are limited, they're
Mm.
defective, and
Yeah.
as we get older, the senses become more limited and more defective, isn't it? At a certain period in our life, the senses are operating optimally at their best capacity. And as we get older, the senses become even more worthless. So the senses have limited capacity to experience the external world. Very often there's some limitation. Okay, so imperfect senses.
We have cheating capacity.
Let's save that for last. You're right.
Okay.
We do have cheating tendency. What else? Imperfect senses.
Illusion.
Tendency to be illusioned, such as
Mm. Um,
That is to think we are the body, Prabhupada says. Basically.
yeah, that's a big one. That's like the primary illusion, is that everyone, almost without exception, is deeply immersed in a misunderstanding of their own identity. Everyone's thinking I'm the body. And even we're practicing bhakti, practicing Krishna consciousness for years. And some of the illusory identifications fall away. What are ways in which we identify the body? What are some of those designations? Like when you ask a person, hi, who are you? Everyone can, not everyone, but let's list 5 or 6 ways in which a person would respond to that question. Go ahead. Hi, who are you? And then what are ways in which people would respond to that question based on the body? I am.
And nationality could be one identity, like material identity.
That's a big one. You know, I'm American, or I'm German, or I'm, this country or that country, and the other people are a different country than me, fundamentally different. Nationality, that's a big one, And when the flag is waving and the national anthem is playing, the people who are immersed in that national identity, their hairs stand on end, they put their hand to their chest, and they think, I am a Canadian, I am an American, I am a German, my country is great. Even if their country is not great, they're thinking, my country is great. Everyone is under this illusion of my country. Okay, what else?
The skin color, or whether you're male, female,
There you
whether
go.
whether you are rich or famous, or whether you're tall or small.
Yeah, these are the typical identifications. My race, my social status, right? My these are my gender. That's a big one. So some of these identifications, they fall away more easily, isn't it? Like you take to Krishna consciousness, you think, really, am I really an American? Come on, really? Those kind of fall away more easily. What are some of the designations that fall away much slower? Or especially one designation which kind of sticks with us very stubbornly. What would you think is a designation, a bodily designation that doesn't fall away as easily? Haribol Sundarananda Prabhu. Nice to see you.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Nice to see you. Maybe I came a little later. Maybe gender.
Gender. That's a tough one. It's like, yeah, I'm not this body. I'm certainly not American. That's silly. That's easy to dismiss. And then the other, gender. I'm a man, right? Yeah, I'm a soul, until you see an attractive woman. Then suddenly, oh, I'm not a man. I'm not the soul, I'm a man, And then if you talk to that attractive woman, then the brain becomes even stupider. And one thinks, yes, I am a man, and this is a woman, and let's see where this can go. So gender is a tough one. Gender is a bodily identification which doesn't fall away so easily. All right, so Why in the world we were talking about that, I have no idea. But we're talking about illusion. So, Nitai Prasad Prabhu, you were saying our limitations. You mentioned imperfect senses. You mentioned illusion. And then we talked
Yes.
about the primary illusion of thinking I'm this material body. What else?
The next, Prabhu, the next one?
Yeah.
Tendency to make mistakes.
All of these tendencies are there. You know, imperfect senses, tendency to make mistakes, illusion, and on top of all that, because of our incredible pride, our incredible false ego, the fourth one. What's that?
Cheating capacity.
Cheating propensity, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't understand things perfectly, but still, I'll be happy to write a book about it, right? I don't want to admit that I'm a bewildered person, that I'm confused. If people ask me directions, well, maybe I'll pretend like I know the directions. So many books have been written by people with these defects. So such persons can never deliver perfect knowledge. So similarly, the mental speculators, the philosophers, they're also functioning with these defects. And therefore, the conclusions they present are never perfect conclusions, although they might reach certain conclusions which are correct. Like the people who are extremely disciplined, following a certain line of lifestyle and drawing knowledge from certain books and practicing meditation, they might reach the conclusion, I'm not the body. There is an absolute truth. They typically will just reach the conclusion that the absolute truth is impersonal. But Krishna won't reveal himself to them because what we talked about before, their lack of devotion. Okay. Where are we? Atavi Krishna Prabhu, please continue reading. Although his energies
are innumerable, they can be divided into principal categories: the internal potency, marginal potency, and external potency. There are hundreds and millions of signs to each of these categories. The dominating demigods who are empowered to control and administer such natural phenomena as air, light, and rain are all classified within the marginal potency of the absolute person. Lesser living beings also belong to the Lord's marginal potency. The material world is a creation of the Lord's external potency, and the spiritual sky, where the kingdom of God is situated, is the manifestation of his internal potency.
tendencies to fall from my about philosophy. Yes. So that's clear, yes. These are the three principal energies of the Lord. Although Prabhupada mentions here, there are hundreds and millions of subheadings to each of these categories. But at least someone can come to understand these three primary energies of the Lord. The internal energy of the Lord, which manifests the spiritual realm, the external energy of the Lord, which manifests the material realm, and then the marginal potency. Someone can talk about the marginal potency, what that means, what its significance is. Anyone would like to share some thoughts about that? What is the marginal potency?
Yes, Prabhu, I just thought, sorry, go ahead, Madhuha Prabhu.
Go ahead, Prabhu.
Thank you. Well, anyway, I just thought about the Sanskrit terms, right? Because I think they're not listed here, but maybe in Nectar of Instruction. Internal energy is Antaranga Shakti, right? External energy is Bahiranga Shakti, and the living entities, we are Tata Shakti. In my understanding, we're situated in the middle. We have the free will or the choice to situate ourselves either in the external material energy or the internal spiritual energy of the Lord.
Yeah, that's the basic idea, that we souls, we have the capacity to exist in the internal energy, the spiritual energy, or the material energy. We are spiritual energy. And here we are, we're having a Sangha, which is very nice, but where are we situated? Which choice did we make? we took a wrong turn. And that wrong turn had some serious consequences, right? So what's happening with us? We're spiritual, we're the marginal potency, we've taken a wrong turn, we've come to the material energy, the external energy. And what's going on with us in this external energy? Anyone would like to give some thoughts about that? What are we doing down here?
Well, basically, we're suffering. We're suffering because we decided to come here not to serve Krishna. And now, but still, Krishna is so merciful that still give us the opportunity by giving us his knowledge that we can go back home, back to Godhead. Basically, that's, in a short.
Yeah, in a nutshell, you got it right. So anyone would like to expand on that notion of what's happening with the soul in this world? Talk about the sufferings of this world? Everyone has sufficient experience of that. Sometimes when we're very young, we don't quite get it, we're just very hopeful of life, and we don't, even if we read the newspaper, it's like that's something that's going on somewhere else. Talk about the miseries of life a little bit, because that's a very important component of progressing in spiritual life, is to hear not only about the spiritual reality, about the beauty of Krishna, about what's happening in the spiritual world, but also to understand very deeply what this material world is, what the challenges of this material world is, what the miseries of this material world are. That's very important to understand that, because we have a tendency to maintain faith in the material world. Faith that, yes, right now it's not perfect. Right now I'm having a tough time, but I just need to make 2, 3, or 7 adjustments and things will be all right, right? That tendency is always there, especially when we expose ourselves to materialistic sound vibration, to the sound vibration coming from materialistic people. That's what they're preaching. They're preaching, hey, you haven't figured it out yet, but all you need to do is this, this, and this, adjust your body in this way, or build up your bank balance, or improve your social status, or blah, 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 and then you'll be well situated. So it's very important to have a very clear and convinced notion of what this material world is and how it's a place of suffering. So would anyone like to elaborate on that notion or that understanding of how the material world is miserable? Start with the threefold miseries. What are those?
Yes,
Okay. Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yes, please. Threefold miseries.
Yeah, so there are miseries which are inflicted by our body and mind. And there are miseries which are coming from other living entities. And there are miseries of natural disturbances, like earthquake, famine, wars, volcanoes.
Yeah, that's it. Those are the threefold miseries. And then there's other miseries, 4 other miseries, which are, kind of the framework in which these other miseries are being experienced. What are those?
Birth, death, old age, and disease.
Yeah, that's what's happening. We, the eternal soul, are undergoing this very gruesome process, very painful process of birth, old age, disease, and death. And it's theoretical until it's not theoretical. Like when you're young, what can you understand about old age? Very little. You can read something about it, but it's really just theory. But old people, it's not theory for them. They're experiencing how their body is giving them pain in so many ways. And even the ordinary functions that everyone takes for granted, for them, those ordinary functions can be very, very complicated and very troublesome. And then disease. We might experience disease throughout our life, but especially in the later stage of life, the disease can become chronic and extremely painful. I have a friend right now, stage 4 cancer, and the disease, that the pain is constant. The pain is constant. So we don't try to hide, we don't try to be like an ostrich and put our head in the sand and ignore the nature of this world. No, we want to see it for what it is. Why? So that we can no longer have faith that there's any possibility of happiness in material consciousness and happiness on the material platform. And Prabhupada, that's why he emphasized again and again, try to understand what is the nature of this material world. Try to understand what you're going through in this material world, this gruesome process, this extremely excruciating, painful process of birth, old age, disease, death, and repeat it again and again and again. So that's meant to help us become sober and thoughtful. All right, on that very positive and bright note, let us continue reading. Where are we? So that's the marginal potency. The internal potency, the spiritual potency is manifesting the spiritual world, the realm of divine love, the realm where all souls are perfect and have their spiritual bodies and are engaged in loving reciprocation with Krishna. It almost seems like unreal because, at least from my experience, I'm so accustomed to living in this world and struggling in this world. Prabhupada says the hard struggle for existence, and that's what this world is. It's a hard struggle for existence. It's almost hard to imagine that there's a life where there's no struggle. There's no struggle. There's no stress. You wake up in the morning and it's just like pure bliss. What are we going to do today? Well, we're going to do what we do eternally. We're going to have fun. We're going to engage with Krishna in loving activities, right? Eat delicious food with Krishna, sing songs with Krishna, dance with Krishna, go out into the forest with Krishna. No hard work, no anxiety, no struggle. It's almost inconceivable to a conditioned soul that such a life exists. But that's the natural life of the soul. And so as we hear more and more about the nature of the material world and the nature of the spiritual world, we lose our attraction for the material world, and our attraction for the spiritual world becomes more and more solidified. We become eager to, I think that's where I want to live. I think I want to live amongst the pure souls. What do I need to do to get there? So hearing is so important. Hearing about both, what the material world is and what the spiritual world is. Okay. Would someone else like to read, please? Gopalacharya Prabhu, would you like to read?
Yeah. Thus, the different energies of the Lord are present everywhere. Although the Lord and his energies are non-different, one should not mistake these energies for the supreme truth. Nor should one wrongly consider that the Supreme Lord is distributed everywhere impersonally, or that he loses his personal existence. Men are accustomed to reaching conclusions according to the capacity for understanding, but the Supreme Lord is not subject to our limited capacity for understanding. It is for this reason that the Upanishads warn us that no one can approach the Lord by his own limited potency.
Continue,
In
please.
the Bhagavad, should I continue? In the Bhagavad Gita 10.2, the Lord says that not even the great rishis and asuras can know him. And what to speak of the asuras, for whom there is no question of understanding the ways of the Lord. This fourth mantra of Sri Isopanisad very clearly suggests that the absolute truth is ultimately the absolute person. Otherwise, there would have been no need to mention so many details in support of his personal features. Although the individual parts and parcels of the Lord's potencies have all the symptoms of the Lord himself, They have limited spheres of activity and are therefore all limited. The parts and parcels are never equal to the whole. Therefore, they cannot appreciate the Lord's full potency. Under the influence of material nature, foolish and ignorant living beings who are but parts and parcels of the Lord try to conjecture about the Lord's transcendental position. Sri Isopanisad warns of the futility of trying to establish the identity of the Lord through mental speculation. One should try to learn of the transcendence from the Lord himself, the supreme source of the Vedas, for the Lord alone has full knowledge of the transcendence.
I mean, these are all points that we've been discussing previously. And this kind of is giving some emphasis to a certain quality which is most essential for understanding our own identity, for understanding the identity of the Supreme Lord, for coming out of ignorance, coming into a proper state of consciousness. Which quality would you say is the most critical quality for the living entity to try to develop in this world in order to achieve enlightenment? Would anyone like to suggest which quality is most essential?
Do you mean the out of the three qualities of nature?
No, but which quality in the living entity, which quality should we try to cultivate in order to get an understanding, a clear understanding of life, in order to awaken our higher consciousness, in order to understand the Supreme Lord, in order to progress from illusion to reality? Which quality is essential for the living entity to have or to cultivate?
To be humble?
That's it. That's the essential quality, right? If someone can just try, and it's not natural for the living entity in the material world to be humble, because the soul, what are souls doing in this world? What's the agenda of souls in this world?
Overlording over material nature?
That's it. We're trying to be God, right? Trying to be the center of reality, trying to be the enjoyer, trying to exploit, right? Trying to be God. So that's kind of the opposite of being humble, right? This extremely unrealistic, delusional, self-centered view of who we are, right? I'm the center of reality. 50 people can walk into a room and all of them are thinking, yes, everyone's noticing me. You know, that tendency is there at least. So, therefore, Mahaprabhu has very much emphasized this quality of humility. And once someone tries to adopt a humble attitude, then they think, you know what, I don't really understand life, you know, and I don't think with my limited capacity, my limited brain, I'm going to figure it out, right? All right, there seems to be a higher power. It's pretty obvious that the world, the universe didn't come about by chance, and I really need some help here. So that's kind of the beginning of knowledge, to have some level of humility. And then that humility will inspire the soul by Krishna's grace to seek knowledge from a teacher, a suitable teacher, and one approaches the teacher submissively. Bhagavad Gita. Anyone know the verse from the Bhagavad Gita? Prabhupada said it's the most important verse in the Bhagavad Gita. As far as I recall, he said it's the most important verse. About fourth chapter of Bhagavad Gita, about approaching a guru. Anyone know the Sanskrit?
Tatvidi pranipatena pariprashena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshina.
Just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master. And how should you approach him? Submissively, with a humble attitude, right? Because that humble attitude will inspire the teacher to share knowledge with you. And that knowledge will sink deeply into your consciousness. So this quality of humility is essential for progressing, for understanding reality. It opens the doors. And the idea that, you know, I'm going to figure it out with my own brain, again, that's the opposite of humility. I think Socrates said, you know, as he progressed in his understanding of life, what I've understood is that I know nothing. And this was his conclusion. Maybe I'm misquoting him, but anyway, this is the conclusion of people who are thoughtful, as they try to understand life, they think, you know what, I can't figure this out by myself. One takes knowledge from a higher source. That's a good sign of humility. Okay, who would like to read? Blake, how about some reading?
Sure, where are we?
Where are we? We are every part and parcel of the complete whole. Is that where we're at?
I'll start there.
Yeah.
Every part and parcel of the complete whole is endowed with some particular energy to act according to the Lord's will. When the part and parcel living entity forgets his particular activities under the Lord's will, he is considered to be in Maya, illusion. Thus, from the very beginning, Sri Isopanisad warns us to be very careful to play the part designated for us by the Lord. This does not mean that the individual soul has no initiative of his own. Because he's part and parcel of the Lord, he must partake of the initiative of the Lord as well. When a person properly utilizes his initiative or active nature with intelligence, understanding that everything is the Lord's potency, he can revive his original consciousness, which was lost due to association with Maya, the external energy. Shall I read the last one?
Yes, please.
All power is obtained from the Lord. Therefore, each particular power must be utilized to execute the will of the Lord and not otherwise. The Lord can be known by one who has adopted such a submissive service attitude. Perfect knowledge means knowing the Lord in all his features, knowing his potencies, and knowing how these potencies work by his will. These matters are described by the Lord in the Bhagavad Gita, the essence of all Upanishads.
So even in our conditioned existence, we have a particular package, right? What's that package that we have right now? In our conditioned existence, we have a body, two parts. The gross body, right? The thing you can see, smell, touch, and we have the subtle body, right? The mind, the intelligence, the false ego. So what are we supposed to be doing with that machine that we have, the gross and subtle body? What's the proper utilization? Blake, if you're talking, I think you're muted.
Oh, am I?
To inquire about absolute truth.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Oh, okay. So I have a kind of a question. Does this mean like every soul, we have a particular duty to perform as part of the Lord's whole master plan, and then is that's kind of like our career, right? But we also have to have the before we start our work in the day, we're supposed to remember, I'm doing this only by God providing me the intelligence and the energy to do it, and I'm doing it as a service. So like some people are pujari, but some people are working outside, but they can have the same attitude. Is that sort of is that connected with what we just read?
Yeah, certainly that's a part of it. There's certain duties which are common for anyone who's aspiring for enlightenment. What would some of those duties be? Anyone would like to talk about that? What are the duties that are common for anyone who's a bhakti yogi?
To constantly meditate on the Lord.
Anyone who's trying to be a bhakti yogi should try to always be remembering Krishna, right?
Right.
What
Right.
else? Practical stuff besides just remembering the Lord. That's a great one.
Hearing and chanting. Shravanam Kirtanam.
That's the two essential ones, isn't it? Shravanam Kirtanam, hearing right? If you want to progress on the spiritual path, doesn't matter who you are. You're a pujari, you're a businessman, you're a doctor, you're a laborer. You must be engaged in the process of hearing. Now, hearing can be done in different ways. Some people, they like to read. Other people, they prefer to put on an audio book and just kick back and listen. Some people like to put on a video and hear from some teacher. So there's varieties of ways in which we can get the sound vibration into our ears, but hearing is essential for anyone who wants to progress on the spiritual path. Hearing from the right source, hearing spiritual sound vibration, kirtan, right? And then when we speak, we also typically will repeat what we've heard. So certain activities are common for all bhakti yogis. And then once you get through with those common activities, which should be ideally done in the morning, right? It's a science. It's really a science. And the science is that one should, my teacher was asked once, my guru was asked, what is the secret to advancing in spiritual life? What do you recommend? He said, I recommend you get an alarm clock. That was his advice. So if we go to sleep at the right time, we wake up at the right time, then we have those early morning hours to fill our heart, fill our consciousness with some spiritual sound vibration. That's a common activity for anyone who's aspiring for Krishna consciousness. And then once the day starts, you engage according to who you are in some type of service. And you might be engaged with the material world, and then you figure out how to somehow connect that to Krishna. What are some of the pitfalls that we experience in terms of, we all have a certain type of talent, a certain type of gift that's given by Krishna. And what are some of the pitfalls we might experience in terms of utilizing those gifts and talents in Krishna's service? Anyone want to share something about that?
I guess to become proud of what you do. That would be a pitfall.
That's a pitfall. That's a big one right there, right? So we're asking Krishna, my dear Lord Krishna, you please engage me in your service, right? So we all have some capacity, some ability. I address the deities, and somehow I'm a very artistic person. I address the deities very beautifully because I'm an artistic person. I come into the gathering of devotees, and some devotee comes to me and says, wow, you dress the deities beautifully. Huh? And what happens? I become puffed up and proud. I think, yes, I did, I did dress them very beautifully, right? So how do we counteract that? Well, how do we counteract that?
Is it that you keep in mind that actually you're not doing it?
Yeah, run with that thought for a little bit. Tell us more about that. Sure seemed like I did it. I'm the one who collected the flowers. I'm the one who put the decorations and the crown where it was. So it seemed like I was doing it.
Yeah, but Krishna says, oh,
go ahead, Blake, continue your thought, and then the next devotee can say something.
yeah, but Krishna says he's the ability in man.
Yeah, that's right.
And there was also one devotee in Denver who was the most amazing carpenter, and he travels around and he helps other temples build things. And he always says that after he finishes his work, he looks at it and then he thinks, "Man, I have no idea how I even did that," because he realizes that Krishna just kind of gave him the intelligence, and
right.
Yeah.
My dear Lord Krishna, you please use me as an instrument. Some of the devotees that painted some of the pictures for Krishna book and some of Prabhupada's books, 20, 30 years later, they looked back at that work that they done, at that artwork, and they said, I have no idea how that happened. It was strictly empowerment by Krishna. It wasn't me. It was Krishna working through me. And we all kind of have that experience that Krishna at times, he utilizes us. He utilizes us to sell books or to speak something or to get some inspiration how to organize something. And so the devotee is always aware of that whatever I'm able to do in Krishna's service, that is simply by Krishna's grace, Krishna's blessing, the blessing of my guru, the blessings of the Vaishnavas. And so the devotee checks that tendency to be egotistical and proud. Although those tendencies, they're there. We're conditioned. I mean, not you. I'm a conditioned soul. So naturally, the tendency will be there to become, to think stupid thoughts and think, look at how wonderfully I just led that kirtan. Wow, look how wonderfully I just dressed the deity. Look, and then we just check ourselves. Really, I know it wasn't me, but this is the conditioned mind and the conditioned ego, just spitting all that stupidity at us. And so we pray to Krishna, my dear Lord Krishna, I don't want this burden anymore. I don't want the burden of false ego anymore. I actually want to serve purely, without the desire for recognition, for adoration, for fame. I really want to come back to my natural position of being your humble and unconditional servant, without any desire for my own benefit. That's freedom, that's happiness, that's the perfect stage. So until that time, we have to tolerate all the stupid ideas that the mind throws in our way. So we have to be a little patient with ourselves and carry on. And the time will come when we'll be in the right position with the right understanding, and it'll be spontaneous. We'll no longer be afflicted and harassed by the false ego. All right. So would anyone like to say something more about that?
Yeah, I think if you have the mentality, well, starting with the waking up. When you wake up, actually you don't wake up. It's the Paramatma is waking you up. Some people need a alarm clock, like you mentioned before, that your guru says get an alarm clock. But actually there is an internal alarm clock, which is the Paramatma, which wakes you up in the morning, not that we wake up. And therefore, if we wake up with that mentality, the Paramatma today woke me up, then we can say, yeah, I see Guru Goranga, and start your day on the right path.
That's good, as long as if I don't wake up, I don't blame the Paramatma, then it's okay.
Yeah. Well, if you don't wake up, you're next life.
Yeah. Okay, let's see what we have for mantra number 5. Okay, let's see how we're doing on time. We're okay for time. I think we have 50 minutes. So I'll chant it first, and then anyone else who would like to chant it, please go ahead and give it a shot. Mantra number 5. Tade jati tannai jati taddure tadvantike tadantarasya sarvasya tadu sarvasyasya bahyata. Anyone else?
Tad e jati tannai jati tadure tadva antike tad antar asya sarvasya tad u sarvasyasya bhayate.
Anyone else?
Tade jati tanna jati tadure tadvantike tadantarasya sarvasya tadu sarvasyasya bhahyataha.
Yes. Don't be shy. You don't have to chant it perfectly. If someone else would like to try it, please go ahead.
Tade jati tanai jati tadure tadvantike tad antar asya sarvasya tad usarvasyasya bhayataha.
Great, Blake. Good. Thank you. Anyone else?
Prabhu, I'm interested.
Go ahead.
Tade jati tanya jati tad dure tadantike tadas tarasya sarvasya tadu sarvasyasya vahataha.
Very nice. Thank you. Sorry, your name is, how do you like to be addressed? Lihak or Chituranjan? What's your preference?
Whatever, Prabhu, whatever you will say.
Oh, we want to address you by the name you want to be addressed by. Chituranjan. That sounds like a nice name. Is that okay to call you
Okay.
that? Yeah?
Okay, Prabhu. It's fine, Prabhu.
Is that what people call you? Chituranjan?
Some people call me
Okay.
by that name.
That's a nice name. Chituranjan Prabhu, would you like to read something?
My English is not so good, Prabhu.
Okay. So who would like to read? Atabi Krishna Prabhu, you read something already. Anyone didn't read so far? Nitai
Hare Krishna,
Prasad?
Prabhu.
Yes, Nitai Prasad Prabhu, you please read.
Translation. The Supreme Lord walks and does not walk. He is far away, but he is very near as well. He is within everything, and yet he is outside of everything. Purport. Here is a description of some of the Supreme Lord's transcendental activities, executed by his inconceivable potencies. The contradictions given here prove the inconceivable potencies of the Lord. He walks and he does not walk. Ordinarily, if someone can walk, it is illogical to say he cannot walk. But in reference to God, such a contradiction simply serves to indicate his inconceivable power. With our limited fund of knowledge, we cannot accommodate such contradictions, and therefore we conceive of the Lord in terms of our limited powers of understanding. For example, the impersonalist philosophers of the Mayavad school accept only the Lord's impersonal activities and reject his personal feature. But the members of the Bhagavata school, adopting the perfect conception of the Lord, accept his inconceivable potencies and thus understand that he is both personal and impersonal. The Bhagavatas know that without inconceivable potencies, there can be no meaning to the words Supreme Lord. Should I continue, Prabhu?
Yes, please.
We should not take it for granted that because we cannot see God with our eyes, the Lord has no personal existence. Sri Isopanisad refutes this argument by declaring that the Lord is far away but very near also. The abode of the Lord is beyond the material sky, and we have no means to measure even this material sky. If the material sky extends so far, then what to speak of the spiritual sky, which is altogether beyond it? That the spiritual sky is situated far, far away from the material universe is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 15.6. But despite the Lord's being so far away, he can at once, within less than a second, descend before us with a speed swifter than that of the mind or wind. He can also run so swiftly that no one can surpass him. This has already been described in the previous verse.
So the first paragraph was talking about whether the Supreme Lord is personal or impersonal. Would anyone like to give any arguments based on the understanding that we've received, why we think that God is ultimately personal and not just impersonal? Anyone would like to suggest or offer some argument?
Well, we can say that the God is impersonal, or at least for some people, it's because they are not willing to see it. They want to see God, and they want to see someone as you and I here with this material body. So since they are not able to see God in a material form, they think that God doesn't have is not a person. That would be one of the arguments that they pose. And the second is that, well, atheist people would say that God does not exist, following the same logic that they're not able to see a person that is here and that able to relate to them and to have a relationship with that person.
How about the notion that the absolute truth is complete. Would anyone say that the absolute truth is complete or incomplete? Like if you pose that question to someone who's a spiritualist, you ask, do you think that the absolute truth is complete or incomplete? Everyone will say, oh, the absolute truth is complete. So Prabhupada poses the question, how can the absolute truth be complete if it doesn't also, the absolute truth doesn't also have a personal aspect? Some of the fallacious, some of the wrong logic that the impersonalists use is that personality, it limits the absolute truth. It limits God. Why is that fallacious or incorrect logic or reasoning? Why would you say that's incorrect reasoning? They say that if you say that God is a person, that's limiting God. If you say that God has form, that's limiting God.
They apply the material example to the spiritual reality, so that it's not applicable. They understand the material personhood. They take the example from the material world, from their experience, which is in itself limited, and they apply it to the spiritual reality, which is different by nature.
Yeah, that's right. When they hear the word person, what comes to their mind, Gopalacharya Prabhu?
Yeah, all the limitations.
Yeah. Person means a limited.
But that is from the experience of the limited personhood that we all experience in this material world. Whereas the Supreme Lord, the idea of a person who has no limitations, so they cannot kind of conceive of that.
Again, this is kind of like egotistical thinking, you know? When you hear person, you think, well, person like within my experience, right? That's what they think. Form like within my experience. So why? Why? My experience is so significant? No. Why not be amenable, open to the possibility that there's personality, there's form, which is totally beyond my experience, totally in another dimension, right? So they're imposing their experience of personality. They're imposing unnecessarily their experience of form. And they're thinking, well, form is limited, you know, and personality is limited. So the absolute truth, the Supreme, can't have form and can't have personality. But that's not what the great acharyas say. That's not what Lord Brahma says. Lord Brahma says, yeah, the Supreme Truth has personality, has form, but not limited form, not limited personality, unlimited form. Just like Krishna, he has unlimited forms. And his personality is not limited. It's unlimited personality. So none of the limitations are there. So their idea is take away everything. No personality, no form, no activities, no qualities, right? And then you have unlimited. Does that sound unlimited to anyone? If you take away all those things, does it sound unlimited or does it sound closer to zero? Right? Just like here we are, 8 of us, right? And if we took away personality from our existence, would we become more unlimited? Well, no, that's, you know, we've just limited ourselves more. Take away form, more limited. Take away activities. So it's, again, it's the product of mental speculation rather than just hearing from authority and understanding that the absolute truth is complete, and being complete, the absolute truth has both an impersonal aspect and a personal aspect. And that conclusion is supported by Shastra, it's supported by great acharyas, and it's supported by, you know, even common sense will dictate to us that that's a reasonable conclusion. Okay, Gopalacharya Prabhu, please read.
We should not take it for granted that because we cannot see God with our eyes, the Lord has no personal existence. Sri Isopanisad refutes this argument by declaring that the Lord is far away, but very near also. The abode of the Lord is beyond the material sky, and we have no means to measure even this material sky. If the material sky extends so far, then what to speak of the spiritual sky, which is altogether beyond it? That the spiritual sky is situated far, far away from the material universe is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 15.6. But despite the Lord's being so far away, he can at once, within less than a second, descend before us with a speed swifter than that of the mind or wind. He can also run so swiftly that no one can surpass him. This has already been described in the previous mantra.
Go ahead.
Yet, when the personality of Godhead comes before us, we neglect him. Such foolish negligence is condemned by the Lord in the Bhagavad Gita 9.11, where he says that the foolish deride him, considering him a mortal being. He is not a mortal being, nor does he come before us with a body produced of material nature. There are many so-called scholars who contend that the Lord descends in a body made of matter, just like an ordinary living being. Not knowing his inconceivable power, such foolish men place the Lord on an equal level with ordinary men.
So they say that the absolute truth, some of them, the impersonalists, they say that yes, the absolute truth descends to this world, avatar, right? But they think that the absolute truth descends in a form made of matter, right? That's one of the things they state. Now, where they got that notion from, it's not in the Shastra. Shastra doesn't say that the Lord descends in a form made of matter. And even besides that, why would the Supreme Lord do that? Why would the Supreme Lord, who has all options available to him, right? He can do whatever he wants, be whatever he wants, and he's decided that he's going to descend to this world in a low-grade body made of matter? Why would the Supreme Lord do that? And even if you consider, like, the definition of one of the definitions of the Supreme Lord is that he's independent. What's the Sanskrit word for that? Independent? Gopalacharya Prabhu?
Parat.
Smarat. He's totally independent. Can do whatever he wants, be whatever he wants, right? So there's certain religious lines of thought. Their conception of God is that God is the supreme person. And when they depict God, how do they depict God? The form of God.
According to material qualities.
According to material qualities, that might be there. Let's talk about other religious traditions. Sometimes you see the paintings of God depicted in other religious traditions. How do they depict God?
The old man with a beard.
An old man, isn't it? So God is full independence, can be whatever he wants, and he's decided to be an old man, not a young, beautiful, charming, romantic, no, an old man he's decided to be. Okay, that's an interesting decision. And then the impersonalists, their conclusion is that God, who can be whatever he wants, do whatever he wants, he's decided not to have an eternal spiritual body and interact in a divine abode with innumerable souls on the platform of pure loving affection. He's decided not to do that. He's decided that of all the choices, just to be a white light. That's a better option. Now, if you presented these two options to anyone who's sane, right? Any sane person, hi, for eternity, would you rather be, or would you rather engage in loving, loving affairs with beautiful associates in a divine abode, a magical place with, no limit to the happiness, no limit to the ecstasy, no limit to the joy? Would you rather have that option? Or would you rather be a white light for eternity? So they think God chose that option, to be a white light eternally. It's not a very sensible conclusion. Yes. Okay, next paragraph, please. Let's have 1 second, please. Atavi Krishna Prabhu, please read.
Thank you, Prabhu. Because he's full of inconceivable potencies, God can accept our service through any sort of medium, and he can convert his different potencies according to his own will. Non-believers argue either that the Lord cannot incarnate himself at all, or that if he does, he descends in a form of material energy. These arguments are nullified if we accept the existence of the Lord's inconceivable potencies. Then we will understand that even if the Lord appears before us in the form of material energy, it is quite possible for him to convert this energy into spiritual energy. Since the source of the energies is one and the same, the energies can be utilized according to the will of their source. For example, the Lord can appear in the form of the Archa Vigraha, a deity supposedly made of earth, stone, or wood. Deity forms, although engraved from wood, stone, or other matter, are not idols, as the iconoclasts contend.
Go ahead.
In our present state of imperfect material existence, we cannot see the Supreme Lord due to imperfect vision. Yet those devotees who want to see him by means of material vision are favored by the Lord, who appeared in a so-called material form to accept his devotees' service. One should not think that such devotees, who are in the lowest stage of devotional service, are worshipping an idol. They are factually worshipping the Lord, who has agreed to appear before them in an approachable way. Nor is the archa form fashioned according to the whims of the worshipper. This form is eternally existent with all paraphernalia. This can be actually felt by a sincere devotee, but not by an atheist.
Talking about deity worship. Yeah, so much misunderstood. So would anyone like to share some realizations about deity worship? Any thoughts about deity worship? Anyone would like to share? Or doubts about deity worship?
I guess as 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 long as your mind becomes purer and purer, then you'll be able to see Krishna present himself in the deity. Otherwise, people will see only the deity out of faith only, and not out of a relationship with Krishna.
Yeah, again, we have the principle of reciprocation, isn't it? The basic principle of reciprocation is that living entities are desiring and God is reciprocating with the desires of living entities. Living entities are desiring and God is reciprocating. So anyone wants to run with that thought, that like condensed thought. Living entities desire, God reciprocates. Anyone want to unpack that idea a little bit?
Come back again? I didn't hear that.
Okay. Living entities are desiring and God is reciprocating with the desires of living entities. Anyone want to unpack that thought? Reflect on that thought. Share some ideas about that statement.
Well, Tara Prabhu, maybe I could speak from personal experience that it's something really inconceivable that before coming to Krishna consciousness, I was kind of like developing a growing desire that I wanted to see God. I wanted to find that the one supreme Lord that is the source of everything. And by Krishna's mercy, he revealed to me that something inconceivable now. And now I came in contact with the devotees in the Hare Krishna movement, and God has revealed to me in the form of the deity, in the form of beautiful images painted by Prabhupada's disciples, and it's something that it's really scary actually to be honest to see that has revealed personal form to me because I had that desire, and he was so kind that he reciprocated with my desire.
Yeah, it's a very beautiful testament, you know. So Atavi Krishna Prabhu, he was praying, my dear Lord, you know, I'm not sure exactly who you are, but I'd like to come to understand you. And so Krishna, he reciprocated with that desire. That's one desire that a soul can have. What are other desires souls can have? Like, most fundamentally, what are the two possible desires, in the most general sense? What are the two possible desires in the most general sense that souls can have?
I don't know, I guess, how can we see him? How can I see God? How can I really have a relationship with God? Because depends on the culture that you are born. You have some preconceptions of what God might be. But in the personal level, you are realizing how where is God? How can I see him? Basically, I would say, in my case, I never doubted that Krishna can present himself in any form. So it didn't take me long to accept it, even though I'm not saying I see Krishna in the deity, but or I can, you know, I feel like when I'm in front of the deity, I might be even ashamed to be in front of the deity because I think that Krishna is really there, and I'm not qualified to be in his presence. That's my thought.
Good, nice reflection. I think like the two most fundamental possibilities for living entities are that the living entity can live in ignorance, ignoring God, or the living entity can live in reality of being the servant of God. Living entity can exist in the spiritual realm, living entity can exist in the material realm. So Krishna, he reciprocates with that desire. You want to live in the spiritual world as a devotee? That possibility is there. You want to live separate from God? The material world is for those souls. Those are the two basic possibilities. And then within the material world, there are certain souls who are turning towards Krishna, trying to understand what is God. And so God is reciprocating with them. And depending on the desire of the living entity, when that desire becomes strong enough, then Krishna will even be willing to reveal his personal form. So someone comes in front of the deity, and their ability to see the deity as Krishna or as a statue depends on their desire. If the person doesn't have any desire to understand Krishna, then Krishna just stands there and reveals himself as a statue. He says, yeah, I'm a statue to you. Fine. Because that's what you want to see. Gopalacharya Prabhu.
Just one thought. Also, Srila Prabhupada explains that, you know, in the spiritual circle, seeing means hearing. So because we still have imperfect senses, so when we go in front of the Archa Vigraha, due to that imperfection, those 4 imperfections, we may not be able, even if we desire, we may not be able to see the Lord, but because we hear about, actually we understand from the Sampradaya, from the teachings, what the form is, the Archa Vigraha, that actually it is Krishna. Then we start perceiving. And of course, the process also has to be there. I mean, service needs to be in place as well for us to start realizing that indeed that form is Krishna. So that is
great point, Gopalacharya Prabhu. We don't try to see with our eyes. First, we try to see through hearing. The Acharya has explained, here's the significance of the deity. And one principle of being sane or humble is to conclude that the vision of the Acharyas is better than my vision. In other words, if all the Acharyas line up and they say, look, here's how it is. The deity is actually Krishna. And then my senses say, well, the deity is not Krishna. The deity looks just like a statue to me. So I have the option of trusting my senses, my mind, my limited intelligence, or I can trust their senses, their minds, their intelligence. And it's really a better proposal to trust their version of reality. And then as we engage in the practice of Krishna consciousness, and as Krishna is pleased with our endeavor, then gradually, slowly, Krishna begins to reveal himself to us. And then we see, well, the deity really is Krishna. The deity is not a statue at all. The deity is Krishna himself, manifesting himself out of his mercy, as was being stated here in this purport, to those who are afflicted by material vision. We can't see the spiritual form of Krishna, so out of his kindness, he manifests himself in that form which we can see, which we can meditate on, which we can bring into our vision and fix in our mind, so that, as the day goes on, we can bring that image back into our mind again and again. So the deity is a facility given by Krishna to help us to reestablish the relationship with him, offer service to him. Very reasonable proposal, very reasonable proposition. But great point, Gopalacharya Prabhu, about hearing. Okay. Blake Prabhu, please read. Have I missed anyone? Has anyone not read today? Madhuha Prabhu, did you read already?
No.
Okay, Madhuha Prabhu, please read, because I think Blake already read, right?
But from the in the Bhagavad Gita, from that point?
In the Bhagavad Gita.
Okay. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says that how he treats his devotee depends on the devotee's degree of surrender. The Lord reserves the right not to reveal himself to anyone and everyone, but to show himself only to those souls who surrender unto him. Thus, for the surrendered soul, he is always within reach, whereas for the unsurrendered soul, he is far, far away and cannot be approached. In this connection, two words the revealed scriptures often apply to the Lord: saguna, which with qualities, and nirguna, without qualities, are very important. The word saguna does not imply that when the Lord appears with perceivable qualities, he must take on a material form and be subject to the laws of material nature. For him, there is no difference between the material and spiritual energies, because he is the source of all energies. As the controller of all energies, he cannot at any time be under the influence as we are. The material energy works according to his direction. Therefore, he can use that energy for his purposes without ever being influenced by any of the qualities of that energy. In this sense, he is nirguna, without qualities. Nor does the Lord becomes a formless entity at any time. For ultimately, he is the eternal form, the primeval Lord. His impersonal aspect, or Brahman's effulgence, is but the glow of his personal rays, just as the sun's rays are the glow of the sun god.
Please continue.
Should I continue?
Yes.
When the child Saint Prahlad Maharaj was in the presence of his atheist father, his father asked him, "Where is your God?" When Prahlad replied that God resides everywhere, the father angrily asked whether his God was within one of the pillars of the palace, and the child said yes. At once, the atheist king shattered the pillar in front of him to pieces, and the Lord instantly appeared as Nishringha, the half-man, half-liar incarnation, and killed the atheist king. Thus the Lord is within everything, and he creates everything by his different energies. Through his inconceivable powers, he can appear at any place in order to favor his sincere devotee. Lord Nishringha appeared from within the pillar, not by the order of the atheist king, but by the wish of his devotee Prahlad. An atheist cannot order the Lord to appear, but the Lord will appear anywhere and everywhere to show mercy to his devotee. The Bhagavad Gita 4.8 similarly states that the Lord appears in order to vanquish non-believers and protect believers. Of course, the Lord has sufficient energies and agents who can vanquish atheists, but it pleases him to personally favor a devotee. Therefore, he descends as an incarnation. Actually, he descends only to favor his devotees and not for any other purpose.
Blake, prabhu, please. Oh yeah, someone has a question or something to share on these points.
In the Brahma Samhita 535, it is said that Govinda, the primeval Lord, enters everything by his plenary portion. He enters the universe as well as all the atoms of the universe. He is outside in his Virat form, and he is within everything as Atmaryami, as Antaryami. He witnesses everything that is going on, and he awards us the results of our actions as karma phala. We ourselves may forget what we have done in previous lives, but because the Lord witnesses our actions, the results of our actions are always there, and we have to undergo the reactions nonetheless. The fact is that there is nothing but God within and without. Everything is a manifestation of his different energies, like the heat and light emanating from a fire, and in this way, there is a oneness among his diverse energies. Although there is oneness, however, the Lord, in his personal form, still enjoys unlimitedly all the pleasures enjoyed minutely by the tiny part and parcel living entities.
Previously, sorry, I missed that in the chat, Blake had shared, yes, I also feel like seeing the deities is always a breathtaking experience that is different than material activities, but I also get nervous and feel like I don't want to get too close. Let's think about that for a little bit, because two devotees expressed that maybe they don't feel so, they appreciate the deity, but they might be a little nervous around the deity. So does anyone want to share some thoughts about that?
Well, for those devotees who worship the deities, like I have my deities, I have Gornitai, and every day I do my worship in the morning, which is something that I look forward every morning because that keeps me alive, I would say. But whenever you're in front of the deities, we gotta remember that we are in front of people. We are in front of supreme people, and whatever we do, it may constitute an offense because since we are not pure, we might either forget to do something, say something wrong. For those of us who like to talk to the deities for some reason, on weird, I guess, I don't know. But you feel you may feel like, yes, I am not pure enough to be in their presence. And it's not that you buy a pair of deities and you bring it home and say, oh, now I got my deities, but it's somehow or another our way of thinking gotta change. And it's that you invited the deities to come to your house, and now you're in front of them, and now what is it that you do? So whatever you do has to be in line with the relationship that you want to develop with Krishna. So always at least me, I always feel like I am not qualified to be in their presence at any time, but they willingly came and they're giving me the opportunity. So I just hope that whatever offenses I commit, they'll be forgiven. Otherwise, I'll be somewhere down in the paraloka somewhere. That's what I think it is, but it's something that you cannot get used to it, but in a sense, not get used to it in a sense because you're in front of high personalities.
Good.
I,
It's a nice reflection, you know. One should not be, Prabhupada said, we worship Radha Krishna in the mood of, in a Vaikuntha mood, with awe and reverence. That's to protect us, because the tendency might be there to try to artificially get too personal with Krishna or too close to Krishna. The system is that we place ourselves as the servant of Krishna's servants, and as Krishna opens the doors and as he invites us, then we come closer to Krishna. We don't try to artificially like come close to Krishna and become too familiar with Krishna. That's not a good approach. At the same time, you know, Krishna is our best friend. Krishna is our well-wisher. We can open our heart to Krishna. So we don't want to also remain too distant, you know. Krishna wants closeness. He wants us to approach him, but we should always maintain, like you were saying, that care, that caution, especially when dealing with the deity form of the Lord, that we're following the prescriptions as given by the great teachers of how to worship the Lord and avoid making mistakes. And typically in deity worship, before we start the deity worship, we ask forgiveness for any offenses we might have committed, we might commit, and at the end we beg forgiveness for any offenses or any mistakes we might have made in terms of our attempt to offer some service to the Lord. Anyone
Prabhu,
else?
I have a question.
Yes.
If a devotee worship Krishna like his friend, means in Sakya, so is it okay, or we did some wrong thing to think Krishna as my friend?
First, we should understand our position. Right now, we have a misunderstanding of our position. We think I'm not the servant of God. We think something else. I'm the enjoyer of this material world. I'm the master. I'm the Lord. So many misconceptions are there in varying degrees. So the fundamental platform for the relationship with Krishna is to understand I'm Krishna's servant. And not even that. I'm the servant of Krishna's servants. That's a better understanding. So first we establish that. And then after extensive purification, then we'll come to understand something about our personal relationship with Krishna, whether that personal relationship is in the mood of being Krishna's servant, is in the mood of being Krishna's friend, is in the mood of being Krishna's like a parental mood with Krishna, is in the mood of being one of Krishna's consorts, a girlfriend of Krishna. That's a very advanced stage. We don't really have to worry about that at this stage. We're just trying to get the basics right. We're trying to understand that I'm a humble servant. That's it. That's a very good platform to function on. And as we continue to function on that platform, as Krishna is satisfied with us, he'll reveal to us what our relationship is with him. So Prabhupada very strongly warned his followers, and in his books, he warned about the tendency to try to artificially jump to a more intimate relationship with Krishna. That's not the process. The superior personality, he's the person who opens those doors and reveals that, well, actually, your relationship with me is in this mood. But that's a very advanced stage. We don't have to worry about it so much. We're trying to get the basics right at this stage. Does that answer your question? Gopalacharya Prabhu, would you like to add anything to that? Sound right? Yeah, Prabhupada
Yes,
warned.
bro. Thank you.
Or if someone is thinking, I'm a friend of Krishna, don't try to jump so fast to that platform, to that position.
There's a small point also. In addition to that feeling, maybe somewhat uncomfortable, is that Sri Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati and Sri Prabhupada, they also used to say that don't try to see Krishna, don't you try to serve Krishna and be seen by Krishna, and that whole concept of the one who is the seer and the one who is seen is important. So we should not try to take that position of the one who goes to see Krishna. We want to present ourselves to Krishna and do it also very humbly and just serve Krishna. So that feeling of discomfort, I would say, is quite all right, because it's good for the devotee to feel in that way.
It's better than feeling too comfortable, let's say. At the same time, when I come in front of the deity, I just, I open my heart to the deity, I pray to the deity, and I remember that Krishna is my most well-wishing friend. So we shouldn't neglect that aspect as well. We shouldn't remain on the platform of fearing God. That's not a platform which pleases Krishna so much. Fearing God is better than rebelling against God. But finally, we should come to the platform of having positive feelings for Krishna. And we can move towards that. Yeah, your point was very nice. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said, don't try to see God, but act in such a way that God sees you. So we just serve, and Krishna, when he's pleased, he'll take away the curtains, and we'll come to understand him more and more. One time, Jayananda Prabhu, who was one of the very early disciples of Srila Prabhupada, and who was considered to be a very exalted soul, Prabhupada said he went back to the spiritual world, and he was asked a question. He was asked, what is the secret to advancing in Krishna consciousness? And his response was, he said, I don't know. I'm so busy trying to do my service for Prabhupada that I don't think about it. And it was a genuine answer. It wasn't a falsely humble answer. And that was his mood. He said, I just want to execute the mission of Prabhupada. I want to please Prabhupada. And with that attitude, Prabhupada was super pleased, and Krishna was also super pleased. Okay, does anyone have any questions or anything they'd like to share before we conclude our meeting? We have 5 minutes left. Any questions or any topics we'd like to touch on for the last 5 minutes?
So let me ask you a question from your experience. What is better, to have faith that something is there, or to have the knowledge that something is there? I mean, this is a general question, of course.
Well, we get the knowledge, and the knowledge solidifies our faith, because the knowledge helps us to understand that God exists, and that here's the specific form of God. And as we engage in the practices of Krishna consciousness, that faith becomes solidified, and over time it turns into realization. So in the beginning stages of Krishna consciousness, we have faith, and that faith is not unreasonable faith. Prabhupada is presenting so many good arguments. He's presenting the philosophy in a very sensible way, which appeals to the intelligence, which answers our questions about life. So based on that information, based on that knowledge, our faith is there, and our faith becomes more and more solidified. And as we become purified by the practice of Krishna consciousness, that faith is transformed into realization. Jnana, knowledge, slowly over time becomes vijnana, realization. So if you ask an exalted soul, do you believe? Do you believe in this? Do you believe in that? Well, it's not really belief anymore. It's conviction based on experience. And if you ask a pure devotee, someone says, do you believe Krishna is God? He won't say, I believe Krishna is God. He knows Krishna. He knows Krishna is God because he has direct experience. So that's what we're aspiring for. We're aspiring to move from the realm of jnana, knowledge, to the realm of vijnana, realization. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that this knowledge is the perfection of knowledge because it gives direct realization of the self by realization. It gives direct perception of the self by realization. So it's not that we remain on the platform of belief. No, we engage in the process and slowly we come to experience reality, the reality of our own existence, that I'm not a body, I'm a soul, and the reality of Krishna's existence as well. I hope that answered your question.
That's good.
Prabhus, thank you so much. It was wonderful to spend this time with you. I wish you a wonderful week, and I'll look forward to seeing you in a month. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you
so
very much.
Thank you very much. Hare Bol.
Krishna.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Have a good week.
Bye. Gauranga.
Hare Bol. Hare Krishna.
Hare Bol.